Daniel Carter woke up before the world. The city outside his apartment was still cloaked in darkness, the distant hum of early traffic barely reaching his ears. He treasured these quiet moments. They were his alone. A few minutes to think, to breathe, before the responsibilities of life pulled him in every direction. Across the kitchen table sat Lily's backpack, neatly packed the night before. A small unicorn keychain dangled from the zipper, chipped at the edges but gleaming in the dim light. Lily insisted it brought her luck. Daniel smiled softly, brushing a lock of hair from his daughter's forehead as she stirred awake. He had promised himself he would be enough. Enough to care for her, enough to love her, enough to make sure she never felt alone, even if it meant living a quiet, lonely life himself. Life hadn't been kind, and love had left him with a heavy heart and one precious little girl. But he had learned to ask for nothing. He worked hard, kept a stable home, and cherished every moment with Lily. The coffee machine sputtered to life, filling the small kitchen with warmth and the comforting aroma of roasted beans. He packed breakfast and lunchboxes with meticulous care, humming a tune his wife used to sing. The routine wasn't glamorous, but it was theirs. Daniel's life had changed forever the day Sarah passed away. Her laughter, her light, her plans for the future, all gone in an instant. Lily had been too young to remember clearly, and Daniel had made a quiet promise to shield her from grief as much as possible. He rarely spoke of her, not because he forgot, but because speaking made the pain tangible. He channeled his energy into Lily, into work, into making life safe and predictable. He did not ask for companionship. He did not ask for romance. He did not ask for happiness beyond the moments he shared with his daughter. He simply asked to survive. And survive he did. The invitation arrived in Lily's school folder, like a surprise tucked between homework and permission slips. Winter Community Fundraiser. Families welcome. Daniel frowned as he read it. Events like this were never easy for him. Couples, families laughing together, strangers mingling, all reminders of what he had lost. Yet Lily's eyes sparkled as she held out the folded paper. "Can we go, Dad? Please," she asked, voice full of hope. He hesitated. He didn't want to disappoint her, and he certainly didn't want to face a room full of strangers who would inevitably notice the single parent standing alone. But when he looked at Lily's eager expression, his answer was immediate. "Of course, Lily," he said, a small smile breaking through. It wasn't for him. It never was. The community center was buzzing with life. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling, casting soft reflections on tables crowded with festive food and decorations. Laughter and music intertwined with a murmur of conversations. Daniel felt a familiar unease settle in his chest, a quiet reminder that he didn't belong in rooms like this anymore. He held Lily's hand tightly as she darted toward a table of craft supplies. His eyes scanned the crowd, almost subconsciously looking for someone to acknowledge his presence, and instead he saw her. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dressed to impress. She was kneeling beside a small boy, patiently helping him tie his boots, her blonde hair falling softly over her shoulders. Her smile was warm, genuine, effortless. She noticed Lily's unicorn keychain immediately. "That's my favorite animal," she said, crouching slightly to Lily's level. Lily's face lit up, and Daniel felt a flutter of something he hadn't experienced in years. Relief. Maybe tonight wouldn't be so lonely after all. Emily Reed noticed Lily before she noticed Daniel, and that was exactly how the evening began to shift. "Is that a unicorn?" Emily asked softly, pointing at the small keychain dangling from Lily's backpack. Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, it's magical." Emily laughed gently, a sound like wind through pine trees, soft and reassuring. "I think it looks very lucky," she said, crouching to Lily's level. "Maybe it'll bring you extra happiness tonight." Lily's grin widened. "See, Dad? She gets it." Daniel couldn't help but smile, the tight knot in his chest loosening slightly. Emily wasn't trying to impress him, wasn't judging his single-parent status or the way he fumbled through social events. She was simply kind, patient, warm, and present. As Lily ran off to join a small craft circle, Emily straightened and turned to Daniel. Their eyes met. He felt something familiar stir in his chest, curiosity, hesitation, a faint spark of hope he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "You're doing a great job," Emily said quietly, her voice sincere, without pity or judgment. Daniel blinked, surprised by the weight those words carried. No one had said that to him in a long time. Not like that. For the next hour, Daniel found himself talking to Emily more than he had spoken to anyone outside of work in years. She asked questions, not intrusive ones, but gentle, thoughtful inquiries about Lily, his life, his routines. He found himself answering honestly, not carefully, not guarded, just real. Emily didn't pry. She didn't push. She listened. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt like he could breathe without holding back. Lily occasionally ran over with craft projects or excited questions, and Emily treated each interruption with patience and warmth. Daniel watched, heart swelling, realizing that Emily wasn't just polite, she genuinely cared. When the evening came to a close, Emily didn't ask for his number, didn't offer to meet again. She simply said, "I'm really glad I met you." Daniel drove home with Lily asleep in the back seat, the streetlights flickering across her peaceful face. He realized that for the first time in years, he was imagining the possibility of something more. Hope. Not loud, not demanding, just a quiet, insistent feeling that perhaps life had something unexpected in store for him. The next morning, Daniel found himself thinking about Emily before the sun even rose. He didn't want to. He told himself it was foolish. He was a single dad with one focus, Lily. His life didn't have room for distractions, for fleeting emotions, for hope that could just as easily break him. And yet, her smile, her soft voice, the way she had knelt beside Lily so naturally, replayed in his mind over and over. At work, he caught himself glancing at the clock more often than usual, imagining what she might be doing. At home, Lily's laughter echoed through the apartment, and he found himself wondering if Emily could hear it too, if she would understand that this little girl was his entire world. He told himself it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. A week later, life seemed to intervene again. At the local grocery store, Daniel pushed the cart down an aisle, carefully guiding Lily past the shelves. He was checking off items for dinner when he heard a familiar voice. "Lily." He froze. Emily stood there, basket in hand, her smile as warm as ever. Lily's face lit up instantly. "Unicorn lady," she squealed, running toward her new friend. Emily laughed, picking Lily up briefly and spinning her in a circle. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't know whether it was worry, gratitude, or something more complicated. They talked casually in the produce aisle, about small things, about nothing important, and yet everything felt weighty, significant. As they walked out together, Emily hesitated at the curb. "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" she asked quietly, glancing at Daniel with a softness he hadn't anticipated. Daniel felt the world tilt slightly, a sense of both fear and anticipation rising inside him. He thought of his carefully contained life, of all the boundaries he had set. "Yes," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. And in that one word, Daniel realized something profound. Maybe, just maybe, he was ready to ask for more than survival. Their first coffee together was quiet, almost tentative. Daniel had expected awkward silences, small talk, polite nods. Instead, conversation flowed naturally, as though they had known each other for far longer than an evening at the community center and a chance encounter in a grocery store. Emily laughed at Daniel's jokes, even the clumsy ones he had long dismissed. She asked questions that weren't invasive but showed curiosity, about Lily, about his work, about the little routines that filled his life. Daniel found himself opening up without thinking, telling stories he had never shared with anyone outside of family. Every time Emily smiled or nodded thoughtfully, he felt a flutter he hadn't felt in years. It was not love yet, not fully, but it was something fragile, delicate, insistent, a seed that refused to be ignored. Lily immediately took to Emily. She tugged at her hand, told her stories about school, about her unicorn collection, about imaginary worlds she created in the living room each evening. Emily listened, laughed, asked questions, and Daniel noticed a softening in Lily's expression he hadn't seen in months. Watching them together, Daniel realized something else. Emily wasn't trying to replace anyone. She wasn't there to fix him. She wasn't a threat to the memories of his late wife. She simply cared, and she fit seamlessly into the life he had painstakingly built for his daughter. That evening, as they walked home with Lily skipping ahead, Daniel felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the winter air. He caught himself stealing glances at Emily, noticing the way her hair caught the streetlights, the easy way she laughed, the subtle kindness in her gestures. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. For the first time in a long time, Daniel allowed himself to imagine, even for a moment, that life could give him more than survival. That happiness, real and steady, could exist alongside his responsibilities. And Lily, in her simple, unguarded way, had unknowingly granted him permission to hope. A few weeks later, Daniel felt the fragility of his carefully constructed life. Lily caught a bad cold that left her feverish and clingy. Daniel missed work to care for her, juggling calls from his office and trying to soothe her restless nights. Bills piled up faster than usual. The pressure of work, combined with his responsibilities at home, weighed heavily on him. For the first time in weeks, he felt the old familiar anxiety creeping back, the sense that life could collapse at any moment, that his fragile equilibrium could shatter. Emily noticed. She showed up at his apartment unannounced, carrying a thermos of soup and a bouquet of winter flowers. Her presence was steady, comforting, a quiet anchor in the chaos. "I thought Lily could use some company," Emily said softly, placing the soup on the counter. "And maybe you could too." Daniel felt a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment. He had always prided himself on being enough for his daughter, on handling life alone. Accepting help felt foreign. They spent the afternoon together. Emily helped Daniel organize medication schedules, distracted Lily with crafts, and offered quiet encouragement. Daniel watched her move with ease and patience, realizing that her presence didn't diminish his role as a father. It complemented it. "I don't want to be a burden," Daniel admitted, as Lily finally drifted into a peaceful sleep. Emily shook her head gently. "Letting someone care isn't being a burden," she said. "It's trust, and trust is a choice we make for the people we care about." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Trust. The word felt heavy with meaning. He had been afraid to allow anyone into their lives again, afraid to open his heart after loss. Yet Emily's quiet care made it possible to imagine a life where he didn't have to carry everything alone. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt hope without guilt. He realized life didn't have to be a solitary journey. Perhaps, he thought quietly, there was space in his world for someone who genuinely wanted to share it, someone who cared for him as much as he cared for Lily. And for the first time, he didn't hesitate to welcome it. One chilly evening, after Lily had fallen asleep clutching her favorite unicorn plush, Daniel and Emily sat quietly in the living room. The soft glow of the table lamp cast shadows across the walls, making the apartment feel warmer than it had in years. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he sipped his tea. He had avoided this conversation for a long time, even with himself. But Emily's presence, patient and unassuming, made it impossible to pretend that the past didn't exist. "Emily," he began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you about my wife, about Lily, about why I am the way I am." Emily leaned forward, her hands folded in her lap. "You don't have to say anything you're not ready for," she whispered. Daniel took a deep breath, letting the memories flood back. He spoke of Sarah, her laughter, her kindness, the life they had built together, and the sudden illness that had taken her from them both. He spoke of the sleepless nights, the hospital corridors, the small hands of Lily holding his own as he promised he would be strong for both of them. Emily listened without interruption. Her eyes were soft but attentive, her presence steady and comforting. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the weight of his grief shared, not carried alone. When Daniel fell silent, Emily reached out and placed her hand over his. "I'm not here to replace her," she said softly, "or to erase your past. I just want to be here for you, for both of you." Her words pierced through the protective walls he had built around his heart. He realized he had been so afraid of loss that he had shut himself off from anything that could bring joy. But Emily's gentle honesty offered something different. Hope without pressure, love without expectation, and the possibility of happiness alongside his cherished memories. Daniel swallowed hard and nodded. I think I'd like that," he admitted. Emily's smile was quiet, reassuring, and it filled the room like sunlight after a storm. That night, Daniel didn't just fall asleep feeling relief. He fell asleep feeling the possibility of love, of family, and of life continuing in ways he had long thought impossible. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe that opening his heart didn't mean losing it. Life slowly began to feel different. Emily seamlessly became part of Daniel and Lily's daily rhythm. She arrived for school drop-offs, helped with homework, and occasionally stayed for dinners. Lily's laughter, once solely a reflection of their small father-daughter world, now echoed with Emily's presence beside them. Daniel watched quietly as Emily helped Lily braid her hair one morning. The soft touch, the patient instructions, and the genuine affection on Emily's face stirred a warmth in his chest he hadn't realized he missed. This wasn't the loud, showy romance of movies or novels. It was something quieter, deeper, a love built on trust, patience, and the everyday acts of care. He felt a subtle shift inside himself. The fear that had always restrained him. Fear of loss, fear of failing Lily, fear of wanting something for himself, began to soften. Emily wasn't replacing Sarah. She was enriching the life they already had. Lily, sensing the harmony, often sought Emily's presence, hugging her tightly, laughing at her silly jokes, and sharing little secrets only a child could have. Watching them together, Daniel felt a fullness in his heart that he had long thought impossible. It was in these small, ordinary moments that Daniel understood something profound. Happiness didn't need grandeur. It didn't need perfection. Sometimes it arrived softly, quietly, and it stayed because it was built on genuine care and trust. For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to imagine a future filled with warmth, laughter, and love, a life where he and Lily no longer had to navigate the world alone. The winter community fundraiser returned, and this time Daniel entered the hall with a very different feeling. He wasn't standing on the edge of life, unsure of where he belonged. He had Emily at his side and Lily happily clutching both their hands. The room was buzzing, filled with laughter, music, and festive lights. But Daniel's attention was focused entirely on the little family he had come to cherish, the two people who had brought warmth and purpose back into his life. He noticed familiar faces from the previous event, but this time he felt grounded, anchored by the bond he now shared with Emily and Lily. The fear of being judged, the anxiety of standing alone, it had melted away. As the evening drew on, Daniel found himself in a quiet corner with Emily. The soft glow of string lights framed her face, highlighting the warmth in her eyes. He realized then that he couldn't keep the feelings he had buried anymore. "I love you, Emily," he said quietly, his voice steady but full of emotion. Emily's eyes glistened. "I love you too, Daniel," she replied, leaning closer, the sincerity in her voice filling the room more than any lights or music could. Lily, sensing the importance of the moment, tugged at their hands and whispered, "Yay, you're both my family." For Daniel, It was the culmination of years of survival, fear, and quiet hope. He had asked for nothing, expected nothing, and yet life had given him more than he could have imagined. Love, trust, and the unshakable bond of a new family had arrived, not through grand gestures, but through patience, kindness, and shared moments. As they embraced, Daniel understood something he had long avoided. Happiness doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it quietly grows in the spaces you never thought could hold it, until you're ready to receive it. That night, he didn't just feel loved. He felt complete. A year had passed since that winter evening when Daniel first met Emily at the community fundraiser. Their home had changed in subtle but profound ways. Mornings were brighter, filled with the laughter of a little girl and the gentle hum of someone who had become family. Evenings were warmer, with shared meals, quiet conversations, and small moments that carried immeasurable meaning. Daniel still woke early. He still brewed coffee before sunrise, packed lunches, and checked on Lily's homework. But now, those routines were shared. Emily arrived for morning drop-offs, helped with crafts, and stayed for bedtime stories when she could. She wasn't just part of their lives. She was woven into the fabric of it, seamlessly, naturally, lovingly. Lily adored Emily, and the little girl's joy reflected back onto Daniel in ways he hadn't realized he had been missing. Watching them together, he often caught himself smiling quietly to himself, a smile born of gratitude and awe at the life they had created. One evening, Daniel sat in his favorite chair, sipping tea, while Emily read a story to Lily on the couch. He felt a soft warmth fill his chest, a combination of love, relief, and quiet wonder. He thought about the years he had lived alone after Sarah's passing, about the nights spent silently wishing for stability, about the days devoted entirely to Lily, about the fears he had carried silently in his chest. And he realized something profound. He had asked for nothing, not love, not companionship, not happiness beyond the moments he shared with his daughter. Yet life had given him everything. Love in the form of Emily's steady kindness. Family in the laughter of Lily, now doubled in joy. Peace in a life that felt complete without being perfect. Daniel placed his hand over his heart, feeling a quiet gratitude that words could not express. Life had not unfolded the way he had imagined. It had unfolded far better. He had survived, yes, but he had also learned that hope, patience, and the courage to accept love could create a life richer than any he had dared to dream. For the first time in years, Daniel Carter smiled fully, completely, knowing he had everything he had ever truly needed, and more. Daniel had never asked for anything, yet life had given him more than he could have imagined. Love, family, and hope renewed. Sometimes, the best things in life come when we stop expecting them, when we focus on what truly matters and open our hearts to the people who care. Just like Daniel, we all have moments of quiet strength, of small victories, and of unexpected joy. Life may not always go as planned, but love and happiness often arrive in the most unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it with someone who could use a little warmth today. Subscribe to the channel for more emotional, heartwarming stories about love, family, and second chances. Tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment where life gave you more than you ever asked for? We'd love to hear your story. Your support helps keep these heartfelt stories alive, inspiring hope, and reminding us all that love can appear when we least expect it.